A warm week of weather provides the setup for a powerful weather system to impact the central United States this upcoming weekend. We have all the details and more next at the Weather Farm. Welcome to the Weather Farm. We are watching a very powerful system that is set to impact the United States later this week. But first, we are going to give you all the details in the lead up to that event and the latest thinking with this powerful storm that will bring heavy rain and snow across the Central Plains through the Ohio Valley by the time we get to our weekend. As we begin our Monday, we do see an area of low pressure across the southeast that has brought rain on our Sunday. The system will continue to bring heavy rain to parts of Georgia and South Carolina. Across the Canadian prairies, we do see clipper systems making their way from Alberta through Saskatchewan into Manitoba. That is going to be the general pattern for the clipper systems this coming week. With this particular one, we may see some snow in far northern Minnesota into far northern Wisconsin or the UP of Michigan, but generally the snow is going to stay north of the border for the first half of this work week. But offshore, we do see another low pressure system making its way towards California. In terms of our temperatures on our Monday, this is going to be a warm day across the Central Plains. We're going to have temperatures 70 degrees as far north as North Dakota. Whereas if you just go to the northern part of that state, temperatures are going to struggle to get to 20 degrees. So we are going to see a sharp temperature gradient from the north of North Dakota to the far southern reaches as much as 50 degrees. But the 80s and 70s are going to spread all the way up to places like Valentine, Nebraska, over towards St. Louis, and all the way down into the desert southwest. Temperatures that were exceeding the century mark in parts of Texas over the weekend, you're cooling back down to the 70s and 80s, but that is a temporary cool down as we expect temperatures to rebound later in the week. Where that rainfall across Georgia and South Carolina is making its way offshore, we're going to be held down in the upper 40s to low 50s on our Monday, but there is no real sign of Arctic air anywhere on this map. As we go to our Tuesday, this is a quiet day of weather for most of the United States. Those clipper systems that has made their way through the Canadian prairies, they have raced off into Ontario and Quebec, bringing light amounts of snow. Out west, off the coast of California, we begin to see some moisture making its way into the Los Angeles and San Diego areas during the day on our Tuesday. But for the most part, the weather is quiet. Same thing on our Wednesday. On the west coast, we do see an atmospheric river bringing large amounts of rain to the coastal lands and higher elevation snows. This is going to be the pattern there for the next 48 hours. But for most of the United States, it's a very zonal west to east flow. As we move to Wednesday, though, we're still going to start to see those temperatures start to bubble a little bit further north, those warmer temperatures, all ahead of that next system. Where I mentioned parts of Texas, you are cooling down for your Monday. By Wednesday, you are warming right back up into the low to mid, even upper 90 across parts of central and south central Texas. The warmth is spreading all the way to the east and up the east coast, up towards Richmond, Virginia, all the way back through St. Louis towards Denver. 60s, 70s, and even some 80s along the Gulf Coast are going to be likely. Again, no real evidence of Arctic air. Even in the far northeast, temperatures are going to be held down to the 20s and 30s, which may be a few degrees below seasonal for this time of the year, but nothing too terrible for the second week of March. So let's look at our Monday. And so we see that clipper system making its way across the Canadian prairies. It's bringing snow to parts of Canada. We see that system making its way onshore on our Tuesday into Southern California, bringing amounts of rain. And then up in the Pacific Northwest, we see that atmospheric river making its way onshore on our Wednesday with heavy amounts of rain and snow leading into our Wednesday night. And by Thursday morning, we're going to see that heavy snow through the Sierras, the Cascades, making their way into Nevada, into Idaho. And then we're going to see heavy rain across Southern California. By the time we get to Thursday afternoon and Thursday evening, we could see widespread 1 to 2 inches of rain from Central and Southern California and several feet of snow across the Intermountain West. But we turn our attention to our Friday, and we see that system making its way out into the Central Plain. As it comes down off of the mountain, the reason we think this system is going to become a very powerful and intense low-pressure system is we're going to see lee-side cyclogenesis with this particular trough. So when you think about when air parcels and air weather systems have to go up and over the Rocky Mountains, they have to get condensed. But as they come down on the lee side of the mountain through places like Wyoming and into eastern Colorado, we see that the air parcels tend to stretch. When the parcels stretch, that lowers the pressure because there's more space for the air parcels to reside in. So we see a lowering of pressures as the system comes off the lee side, and that's going to help fuel this particular system. We have a tight baroclinic zone, we have tight pressure gradients, all of these things, and we have a lower level jet and a jet stream that is going to be very powerful and negatively tilted in this region at this time on our Friday. So all these things are going to add to this storm developing into something very intense by the time we get to our Friday. So this is the GFS model with the jet stream, but the main energy and the focus is what's moving onshore through California and Nevada. We see that negatively tilted trough. We see those winds through the jet stream really strengthening to over 100 knots by those yellows. And we see that negative tilt continuing through our Friday into our Saturday. And we see those winds continuing to ride through the jet stream on a very strong basis. This is the European model. It gives us another perspective of what this storm could be. And here we do see a little more negative tilt to the trough. The GFS was a little hard to discern, but this one we do see a little bit clearer. We do see that negative trough as it builds its way into Colorado. We see those strong winds out in the exit region of the jet stream, and we see that trough continuing to dig and build Friday into Saturday. The European model has been a little more consistent in its model-to-model runs with the negatively tilted trough with the stronger winds in the jet stream. This particular run of the GFS is kind of catching up with it, but it has varied greatly over the weekend. So let's look at this system from a perspective of where we think it's going to be on Friday. And so we can see from the different model runs that we have seen over the last 2 days, this low pressure system is generally in the area of Nebraska and Kansas. And for a system that is 4 and 5 days out, those are the things that we are looking at right now. We're not so much focused on the mechanics, the exact location of the snow, of the rain, of the severe weather. We are keeping those things in mind, but we're really looking at see how do the models perform run after run. And that's why I showed the jet stream model, the two different ones, the GFS and the European. And I indicated that the European had been a little more consistent with its model-to-model run. Here is the GFS placement of the low pressure, the center of the low pressure at Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So we see, again, it wobbles between Kansas and Nebraska, but generally it is between a 969 and a 975 millibar low. So again, this is a very powerful, strong system, and it's one that we have not seen anywhere in this part of the Midwest in a long time. I mean, we have to go back almost to 5 or 6 years ago with any system at any time of the year this strong in this part of the country. So again, as this forecast isn't going to give you the amounts of snowfall and rainfall, we are going to examine this system from its different trends and the things that we are seeing in terms of consistency from model run to model run. The one thing that we have seen is the excessive amount of warmth that is going to be present on Friday. So we're going to see warm weather near century, top in the century mark in far southern Texas, but 70s and 80s stretching all the way up through Arkansas, Missouri, into Iowa, up towards Minneapolis, into the Dakotas. And on the backside, you're getting that cold air being wrapped around into the system, 20s and 30s, where we expect the snow to be flying, and we expect the snow to be piling up very significant. Again, we will have specific amounts later on in the week as we fine-tune this forecast, but this is our setup right now. And in fact, the Storm Prediction Center has gone ahead and issued a marginal risk of severe weather for Friday, anywhere from Iowa through Illinois into western Indiana, down through Kentucky and Tennessee, Arkansas, Louisiana, all the way down to the Gulf Coast. And a reason for that is we're going to see dew points surging far north. We're going to see dew points in the 50s up towards Iowa, Missouri, central Illinois, 60s near the Gulf Coast, and we could even see some higher amounts. And this is another thing that we've been watching over the last several days. These dew point temperatures have been generally consistent model run to model run over the weekend. So we do believe that there's going to be a large amount of moisture transported northward with this system, with the deepening low, with those close pressure lines and the winds that are going to spin counterclockwise around it. It's going to pull a lot of moisture up. And so when we look at the storm cell composite, this is the map where we kind of look to see when we start seeing those grays appear and those darker grays, those indicate a higher level of supercell potential. And so we see by Friday afternoon, we start to see that across Iowa and Illinois and even some blues. And so when we start seeing those values, those blues indicating a value of higher than 5, that is a strong likelihood of supercells, and some of those could be severe. Now that dies off overnight Friday into Saturday, and our main focus on Saturday for severe weather is going to be across Louisiana, Mississippi into Alabama, and then that's going to die out. And as this system moves towards the east, crosses the Appalachians into the northeast on our Sunday, we're not really going to see much in the way of severe weather. So our main focus again on Friday is going to be north in Iowa, Illinois, and Missouri, and then on Saturday down along the Gulf. So let's put this system into motion. Let's watch it develop as it comes out of the Rockies. We see that low pressure developing across parts of Nebraska. Heavy snow, and a lot of it is being spread from Montana, the Dakotas, into Wyoming. Out ahead of it, we're going to see a line of storms making their way through Iowa and Illinois. Saturday, we could see another line of storms making their way through the Ohio Valley and Tennessee valleys. Not severe, but definitely heavy amounts of rain are likely with this particular system. The other big thing is going to be the winds that are associated with this. We're going to see wind gusts 40 to 50 to 60 miles per hour with this particular system, especially across parts of Wyoming and the Dakotas where you're going to have that snow flying. We're going to see blizzard conditions existing for several hours throughout this upcoming weekend. Now, the details, the location, all of that is still subject to change, and we will refine this forecast in the coming days, but we want you to be prepared right now for the possibility of a prolonged blizzard conditions this upcoming weekend. Well, we hope you've enjoyed this video here at the Weather Farm as we prepare you for this upcoming weather system on our Friday and Saturday. Again, we will have updates throughout this week. Check back with us later for the latest information, and we hope to see you again real soon here at the Weather Farm.